That's fine.
Okay? I mean, hopefully I'll get into some heavier information here. I was trying to set up the significance of this here, but if everybody needs to take a break and stop and think about something, I mean, that's okay. But, so we go ahead and keep rolling. Okay. The notion of the gimel having the foot means that it's not static. Now, for me to say, well, why didn't I mention the word gimel or camel? It's because this is a strategy. So the strategy is dynamic, in flux, motion. But the letter bet is a basic object. So what I just showed you here is the bet view of 3 letters. The bet view, what's the basic object of an aleph? Well, if it means strength or the one, that's not a basic object. But an ox is a basic object. So the bet view of an aleph is an ox. The bet view of a bet is a house. The bet view of a gimel is a camel. The bet view of a dalet is a door. But let's look at the dalet, the door, for a moment. What does it mean when you stand at the door? Here's a door. Now if somebody shows you the door, they're telling you, you can go out. Now if you don't take that option, you can stay in. But if you're not looking at the door, you're not even thinking about an option of staying in or out, you're just there. And all of a sudden if somebody shows you the door, it's like, oh, I can leave if I want to. I'm facing a choice. So a threshold is actually a choice. A door represents a choice, like a fork in the road. You can go left or right. One thing hidden in the pattern behind a dalet being a triangle, though it's the number 4, and the number 4 represents earth, which is round, but there's 4 corners on a door. It invokes this geometrical, these primary geometrical shapes. That's a whole other part of the study. But the point is, why should it be a triangle? Someone said, and it's like, well, the top half of the hourglass, you know, the sand fills up and drops down here. So this delta shape is where one thing transitions into another. There's a certain feminine form there. There's also this notion of a river delta, like the Nile Delta, is where the water joins the sea. There's these different pictures that are within the letter shapes. The point is, if you're facing a fork in the road and you're coming down this way, you've got a choice. Do you go that way or do you go that way? So if somebody mentions, or if you see the letter delta or dalet or a door, it's a decision. You're facing a decision. What that means is that whenever you see in Hebrew a word spelled with a letter dalet in it, there's something there about a decision or a choice, or this side versus that side. And then you can say, well, if you read, for example, if you read the word, there's a word spelled with 2 letters, it's pretty simple. And it's a pretty big word. In fact, it's one of the biggest words. You got dalet, ayin, which is the word for knowledge. And then you've got ayin dalet, which is the word for witness or testimony. And if you put the letter mem, actually mem vav, moed, is you've got the festival. The festival is the place, mem. The vavs and yods are kind of like wild cards. You can take them or leave them, and they generally don't change the meaning of the word. You can intersperse them here and there, which is one way to use the red dictionary, is look at the various spellings of the words by plugging in yods and vavs, and you can see them written here or there that you won't find if you're looking at the pure form of the letter, the pure form of the word. That's down the road a little bit. But anyway, the point is, ayin dalet itself, this word means witness or testimony. A testifier at a court case is an ayin dalet. But it also means until. Until what? Okay, we'll go until she has to leave. So what is the time and the witness that it's time to quit and have a break? Well, she's going to get up and say, we have to go. So you'd be the ayin dalet of the occasion of when to stop. Okay, so, but this is also, if you look in the Red Dictionary, it's also booty, or something stolen away by thieves. Well, so you could say, well, how do you know this guy's a thief? Well, first, hey, look, he's got your wallet on him, so that's the witness or the testifier, the testimony that he is the thief because he has this thing. Interestingly enough, this also, if you have, I think the word is with a hey at the end, and the hey is the feminine form, and it means to reveal, or the evidence, or the manifestation of, and it means ornament. And if you put like a vav yod, Yahweh says he has ornamented himself, adorned himself with jewels, which are the witnesses or the testimonies, which are his moedim. you could take this one word and you can start adding other prefixes and suffixes and looking at the other uses of the word, all of which is useful with the dictionary to do that study. But it's also the thing that he allowed to be stolen away. We lost the Moedim. Our ancestors didn't appreciate what he gave them, and so he called in, there's this verse where he says, I'm going to call in the Piritzim. Well, the Yod Mem is plural, like Bob Poverty, and Ot is plural. The Piritz. That sounds like pirates. The Piritz, Pei Yod Resh Zadi, is the worst, abominable people that he could find that cared nothing for anything but to come in and pillage and murder and ruin, wreck, devastate the Piritim. And Yahweh says to Israel, because you guys profaned my kadosh things and made them halal, is the word ket lamed lamed, because Yahweh gave us understanding of his ornamentation, his beautiful jewels, and we, Israel, considered them to be worthless dung and nonsense, he said, okay, I'm going to call in the pirates, and they will steal away what I gave you, because you guys made it halal, which is where this is the 8th letter, where we get H, and this is LL. You could say, well, there's an inferred E, which is the word hell. Israel made hell of Yahweh's treasure, so he's going to call in the Assyrians, the pirates, to make hell of Israel's treasure. This is this back-to-back mirror image. The same thing that the Greeks did to the language. Yahweh said he was going to be allowed to be done, all the beautiful, wonderful things of himself that he gave to Israel. Now, the other interesting thing about this word, het lamed lamed, is to look at Ezekiel 36, 23. If you look at the book of Ezekiel, he starts off with a complaint against Israel, and then he spends the next 20 chapters, 25 chapters, saying this is what's going to happen to Assyria and to Babylon and to Sion and to Tyre and to Edom and Moab and all these places. This is what's going to happen to Jerusalem, and it's like everybody's in nothing but big trouble. The whole first 25 or 30 chapters of Ezekiel. But then the last part of Ezekiel, you got chapter 37 where you got the valley of dry bones. It's like, well, that's a good thing. He's going to speak and prophesy to the valley of dry bones, and then this whole big army comes back, and then he says, I noticed the stick here. He's going to take the 2 sticks and make them one in his hand. And then you get into chapter like 40 to 45, I think, something like that. He's talking about this new temple in Jerusalem. Like, there's a big turnaround. A big turnaround starting at approximately chapter 37. But if there's a bunch of bad stuff happening for the first 30-something chapters, and then 37 on is talking about all the good stuff, what is the transition point? So I thought to look at that and say, what turns everything around? Well, right before this verse, in Ezekiel 36, Yahweh says of Israel, he says, I gave you my treasures. I gave you my treasures, which you guys have made halal in the eyes of the nations amongst whom you've been scattered. Well, the word is translated, you can see in the Rare Dictionary, it says profane, common, vile, detestable. But this word also means to be wounded unto death, to be slain, to be punched holes in, to be hollowed out. It's the word for a flute, which is hollowed out and has holes punched into it. It's also to begin something new. It's also a priest of questionable genealogical descent, and it's a priest deprived of the priesthood. So, now what is this word halal? It always says 3 or 4 times, and then it kind of pinnacles at Ezekiel 36:23. He says, I'm going to scatter you into the world, where you're supposed to tell people of my great name. But instead of making my great name Kadosh, which is Kuf Dalet Shin, you've made my great name, my great Shem, Halal. And what he says here is, I will make my Shem, Gadol, Kadosh. The word Gadol is where we get the word great name. I'm going to make my great name Kadosh when you, Israel, make my name Kadosh, which you have made halal in the eyes of the Goyim nations amongst whom you've been scattered. Who's he talking to? Was he talking to our ancestors 3,000 years ago when this book of Ezekiel was written? Is he talking to the guys 2,000 years ago when Yeshua walked the face of the earth? Maybe he was talking to people 40 years ago. Has his name ever been made Kadosh? What is his name? that we should make it kadosh. How have we made his name halal? Who's he talking to here? What does halal mean? Now, Go is Shem. The word Shem in Hebrew actually means not only name, but fame, renown, reputation, and the occupation of what you're concerned with. I would put to you, I would bring to your attention that every one of these letters is Yahweh Shem. Because every one of these letters, which I'll try to argue the point and prove in a moment here, because we're done with this, that every letter is him describing himself, revealing himself, letting us know what the truth is, which is his self revealed in these 22 letters. And that if you know the meanings of these 22 letters, then to say, well, Aleph is an ox, and Bet is a house, and Gimel is a camel, and Dalet is a door, just doesn't do it. Those are the pictographic object types. But there's all this else. If you look at this one line and say, ox, house, camel, door, window, nail, weapon. Here, I'll read through it for you who don't know. Aleph is an ox, Bet, house, Gimel, camel, Dalet, door, Hay, window, Vav, nail, Zion, weapon, Het, fence, Tet, snake, Yod, hand, Kaf, open palm of the hand, Lamed, shepherd's staff, Mem, water, Nun, fish, Samik, a prop, a support like a trellis, Ayin, eye, Pei, mouth, Zadi, fish hook, Kuf, the back of the head, or perhaps even a monkey. Resh, a head or an exalted man. Sheen means literally teeth or fire. And Tav is a mark or a sign. Do you see the story there? Some might see the story, but it's pretty obscure.
The word Bereshit, if you went through the letters of Bereshit, it would tell you the whole story of the Bible.
But so you have to know that.
Right.
You have to be able to read a little bit. But what I'm trying to show here is that if all you saw was the pictographic meanings of the letters, you could invent a story. But it might be kind of difficult. If I said, I met a guy once. This guy was a genius wit. He's an MC at a stage show. You could say 3 words. You could say typewriter, ceiling fan, and dog in the yard. And he'll put this thing into meter and verse and rhyme and tell you this whole story. And it's like, wow. You could take these and make a story. Doesn't make it true, it just means you can do that. How do we know it's true? I propose that based on this thing called the